Hey everyone, how's it going today? It's your boy Cyclical back at it again with another Naruto discussion video. You're all clever enough to read a video title, so I don't think I need to really introduce this one at all, so I'll just get right into the point. There's no special rules in place or anything, so I can get straight into this one and take a look at who would win, Kisame or Jiraiya. So right off the bat, I want to take a look at Kisame's scaling. As any of you who have seen my Akatsuki ranking list will know, I don't agree with the larger community about how strong Kisame is, at least in general. This isn't to say that Kisame is weak, he clearly isn't, but rather that I think people misunderstand some of the feats we're shown from Kisame. Oftentimes people take these showings out of context of the scene to make Kisame seem more powerful than he really is. The first of these I want to address is in Kisame's two fights against Might Guy. Might Guy is a strong fighter, and especially so once he opens the 6th and 7th inner gates. With the 7th gate open specifically, you could probably argue that Guy is Kage level for the duration of the time he's in the technique. We do see 7th gate Guy fighting alongside people like KCM Naruto and Killer B in the War Arc, after all. Then it stands to reason that the 6th gate, while not as powerful as the 7th or 8th, is still in an impressive state for Guy to be in. If Kisame can scale to an opponent like this, he obviously must be on a similar tier of strength, right? Well, unfortunately, Kisame simply does not scale to Guy with the gates open. In his fight against Team Guy during the Kazekage Rescue Arc, Kisame has a clone containing 30% of his chakra engage in a fight against Guy and his students. He catches the group of younger ninja in the water prison jutsu, leaving just himself and Guy to fight as they're content to do. After a short while though, Guy decides he needs to finish the fight and he opens the 6th gate. With the abilities of the 6th gate available to him, Guy launches the Asakujaku and finishes the fight. And it's because of this fight that people think Kisame is monstrously strong. This belief comes from two main misconceptions though, which I'm going to debunk right now. The first and less major misconception here is that the clone of Kisame's was only 30% as strong as he was. And this simply isn't the case. This clone did contain 30% of Kisame's chakra, meaning that it should have been on a similar level of speed and strength to Kisame's base form. In the grand scheme of things, 30% of your power still leaves a lot of gas in the tank to keep fighting with. And speaking of gas in the tank, Kisame has one of the largest chakra supplies in the entire series, being compared directly to a tailed beast. If one of his clones had 30% of this much chakra, then the clone itself should still have a frankly massive supply of chakra, meaning that none of Kisame's techniques would likely be off limits to it. This is in stark contrast to the clone containing 30% of Itachi's chakra, which couldn't even use the Mangekyo Sharingan techniques because even one Amaterasu or Tsukuyomi would have been too draining. So due to the raw size of Kisame's chakra pool, this clone should have been closer in strength to the original than a clone made in the same way would have been to most of the other cast members in the series. The second misconception is that Kisame forced Guy to open the 6th gate to win the encounter. Guy did open the 6th gate, this much is true, but he only did this to access a move that would allow him to defeat Kisame all at once. If you look back on the fight, Guy seems to be doing just fine even in his base form against Kisame here. He hasn't opened any of the gates until the time he opens the 6th gate to use the Asakujaku, and then he does and he wins, which should indicate that he felt confident enough to fight Kisame alone to fight in his base form and only finish the fight quickly due to a perceived time constraint. Keep these two misconceptions in mind as we look at Kisame's fight against 7th gate Guy, and you'll see that it's more of the same. Once again, Guy didn't need to open the 7th gate to fight Kisame, but rather to access a specific move, this time the Hirodora. Guy uses the Hirodora to blow away the Thousand Sharks jutsu that Kisame has summoned, and he kind of happens to take Kisame down in the aftermath of the same attack. This again should tell you that Kisame simply isn't competing with 7th gate Guy in terms of strength. Of course, it would be irresponsible of me not to mention the fact that in this fight against 7th gate Guy, Kisame started off exhausted and without his sword, Samehada. It's hard to quantify how much weaker he should be without Samehada here, but just like with how the 30% clone of Kisame should have been somewhat relative to his full strength, Kisame probably isn't as weak in this circumstance as people think he is. Once again, Kisame has chakra comparable to a tailed beast, meaning he probably would have had plenty for a fight even if he hadn't absorbed chakra from B before he fled the Waterfall of Truth. But he did absorb chakra from B before he fled, enough of it that Killer B couldn't move afterward, and Killer B is a Jinchuriki, meaning that Kisame should have enough chakra here to almost completely replenish his own chakra supply. On top of this, he also got a little bit from Alba as well. But once again, this fight winds up being so short that how full Kisame's chakra is ends up being completely irrelevant since there's no way he could have used it all up anyway. I'm not just making this video to dog on Kisame though, and now I'm going to get into the reason I think it's even feasible to put him against an opponent like Jiraiya. In Kisame's fight with B, we see that he's able to absorb the chakra off of not only his opponent directly, but also from their ninjutsu-based attacks. Kisame is then able to absorb that chakra into himself through Samehara, making himself more powerful than he was before. By absorbing a large portion of the Eight Tails chakra, Kisame was able to become powerful enough to make a joke out of Killer B, someone who should be roughly on par with the Kage. If Kisame can do this to his opponents, it becomes clear that he is indeed capable of being a serious threat to any opponent that can't deal with the chakra absorption ability. So while normally Kisame would likely sit at the top of Jonin tier or maybe the bottom of Kage tier in strength, he can become a much higher level fighter depending on if he has the right opponent or not. So moving on to Jiraiya now, we have a fighter who, as I've detailed before on my channel, should be somewhere near the top of Kage level in terms of strength. He was a candidate for Hokage after all, and his performance against Pain should speak for itself. Jiraiya has access to all of the chakra natures except Lightning Style, has some of the strongest summons in the entire series, access to Sage Mode, a lifetime of battle experience across multiple world wars and countless missions for the Hidden Leaf Village, trained several future Kage and Kage level fighters, knows extensive sealing jutsu, knows extensive elemental jutsu, has a variety of miscellaneous jutsu at his disposal, and is stated to be one of the strongest shinobi in the world. Everyone looks up to Jiraiya in the Leaf Village, and everyone in the Leaf Village also treated his own death as a major threat to the village itself. There's really nothing bad you can say about the guy, except for one or two misconceptions that I want to debunk really quickly. The only major piece of evidence I ever see brought up against Jiraiya when people try to power scale him is that he was gravely injured by Four-Tailed Naruto when trying to suppress the Nine Tails chakra. People take this to mean that he should only be roughly as strong as Four-Tailed Naruto is, but this isn't true. We can look to another example of a similar situation to realize the truth behind the incident. This being the time when Guy had to subdue Lee after Lee accidentally got drunk. When Guy describes this event to Tsunade, he explains that he had to have help in subduing Lee because even though Guy was much stronger than Lee and would have easily defeated him if Lee had been an enemy, Lee was a precious student of Guy's, and so Guy couldn't go all out to stop him from destroying the restaurant they were at. Now the same should be true of Jiraiya's situation with Naruto, where he wasn't willing to harm Naruto in the process of subduing him. This seems more likely to me than Jiraiya actually being weaker than Four-Tailed Naruto, especially since Orochimaru, someone who should be generally about as strong as Jiraiya and who was missing his arms at the time, seemed to be stronger than Four-Tailed Naruto when they fought each other. The other thing I want to briefly talk about for Jiraiya is his performance during his fight against Pain. I went into some depth about this in my last video as well, so if you want another way of looking at this in more depth, the link to that video will be in the description. But Jiraiya generally gets downplayed in his fight against Pain since he only took out 3 of Pain's bodies. This is true, however Jiraiya didn't know anything about the abilities of the Rinnegan at the time, something that everyone who later fights a Rinnegan user knows about due to Jiraiya's ability to analyze the jutsu during this fight. And not only is Jiraiya able to break down the abilities of the Rinnegan during the battle, but he may have even won, just as Pain says, had he figured it all out a little sooner than he did. As we see during this fight, Jiraiya manages to destroy 3 of Pain's bodies, which he then leaves behind. Had he known about the Naraka's Path's ability to revive the dead, he likely would have taken these bodies into the belly of the toad like he did to the Human Path's body. Lacking 3 of the bodies, it becomes seriously more possible that Jiraiya might have won his fight against Pain. I don't think Jiraiya is stronger than Pain by any means, but I do think he deserves more credit than he's typically given for his performance against Pain here. So getting into the fight between the two, I want to remark that I think Jiraiya should be comfortably a bit above Kisame in terms of speed and strength. However, Kisame's ability to absorb chakra and add it to his own strength is particularly dangerous for Jiraiya, since Jiraiya is primarily a ninjutsu-based fighter. So just like I did in my Itachi vs Pain video, I'm going to narrate a version of this fight that I think seems most likely to happen. To set the scene for the fight, I first need to imagine a scenario in which the two of them actually meet and fight each other. This isn't too hard since they share a common enemy in Orochimaru, and so to kick things off, I can see a situation in which both Kisame and Jiraiya are investigating one of Orochimaru's hideouts at the same time when they happen to come face to face with each other. Kisame and Jiraiya have met as enemies before when Kisame and Itachi came to capture Naruto, and Kisame and Jiraiya immediately recognize each other in this instance. They exchange a brief banter before Kisame, still believing himself no match for one of the Sannin, attempts to flee. Jiraiya makes the snap decision to attempt to take down one of the Akatsuki's members here, and he blocks Kisame's escape through Orochimaru's tunnel system by summoning the belly of the mountain toad. With his path blocked, Kisame realizes he has no choice but to stand and fight his way past Jiraiya, and he even becomes excited to put his skills to the test in such an extreme way. His first move then is to summon a lake's worth of water to flood the belly trap, just like what he did when his clone encountered Team Guy. The belly of the toad fills quickly, placing Jiraiya and Kisame both underwater. Jiraiya is no slouch when it comes to underwater combat, but knowing that Kisame is a former Mist Village shinobi, he opts to attempt to move the battle away from Kisame's home turf. Jiraiya then dispels the summoning jutsu, allowing the hallways of Orochimaru's underground hideout to flood with water. Jiraiya forms a Rasengan to bust through the roof of the hallway he's in to move up to the next floor and out of the water. Kisame follows quickly behind, however, and rushes at Jiraiya in an attempt to cut him up with Samehada. Jiraiya forms another Rasengan in response, but Kisame is able to cut through this chakra and into Jiraiya's hand and shoulder before Jiraiya can properly counter the attack, draining some of Jiraiya's own chakra in the process. Jiraiya notes though that Kisame's sword can cut through and absorb chakra since he feels more drained than he was a moment ago. He decides he needs to get some space to get a quick plan together, and so he collapses the walls of the tunnel he's in with an earth-style jutsu. Kisame begins pushing his way through this pile of rubble to come after Jiraiya, who apparently isn't as strong as the rumors would have him believe. In the meantime, Jiraiya activates the Lion's Mane jutsu and claps his hands together to begin an attempt at entering Sage mode. Kisame makes it through the collapsed tunnel in a matter of moments and begins a charge at Jiraiya, though Jiraiya responds this time by launching some of his hair as Senbon, which Kisame blocks with the blade of Samehada. The two play a game of chase through the tunnels of the complex for a time, neither of them able to gain the upper hand now that Jiraiya is fighting without the use of his arms and Kisame isn't able to catch Jiraiya in a jutsu to immobilize him. Eventually though, their battle leads them to the surface above, just as Jiraiya has managed to form the chakra to summon Ma and Pa. The two toads appear on his shoulders and Jiraiya and Kisame have a rather tense stare down for a moment. Kisame shoots a water shark bomb at Jiraiya, forcing him to dodge lest he take the full force of the attack. Jiraiya weaves the hand signs to summon one of the other large toads for the battle as he dodges, and Kisame begins to realize he may need to kick it up a notch as well, fusing with Samehada while Jiraiya calls forth Mr. Gamaken. Kisame then releases another monumental water-based attack as he summons the giant water bubble that he caught Killer Bee and the giant raccoon in. Jiraiya and his summons are all caught off guard by this, though none of them are at an overwhelming disadvantage because of the fact that they're all strong swimmers. Mr. Gamaken begins to engage Kisame, only managing to be a minor inconvenience to him due to Kisame's underwater speed advantage. In the meantime, Jiraiya swims to the bottom of the bubble with Ma and Pa, who have by this point gathered enough nature energy for Jiraiya to enter Sage mode. Upon reaching the bottom of the jutsu, Jiraiya begins rotating a massive amount of chakra just as he would to form the Rasengan. This time, however, his goal is not to form a Rasengan, but to disrupt the water bubble jutsu, which he manages to do just as Kisame is starting to come to attack him after defeating Mr. Gamaken. The bubble pops, leaving Kisame and Jiraiya once again standing on solid ground. Jiraiya quickly launches the Kagari Senbon, which Kisame is barely able to avoid as Jiraiya blitzes to Kisame's side with the giant Rasengan, hitting Kisame squarely in the torso with the attack. It seems to do some major damage at first, though Kisame smirks as he begins to absorb the chakra from the attack and use it to heal the injury he's just sustained. Jiraiya then retreats to try another tactic. He gains a little distance before launching a massive blast of a fire-style jutsu, which Kisame counters with the Super Shark Bomb, which easily overpowers Jiraiya's own fire style and forces him to quickly erect an earth-style barrier to protect himself. Jiraiya isn't killed in the exchange, but he is wounded by the force of the previous blow. He realizes he needs to finish this with one attack, and so he calls on Ma and Pa to help out. They begrudgingly oblige and warm up to begin the Frog Song Genjutsu, and it's at this point that Kisame is out of options. He's caught off guard by an unseen jutsu and is promptly executed by Jiraiya once he's immobilized. In the end, this is a battle that wound up being closer than it probably had a right to be. While Jiraiya should be a fair bit stronger than Kisame, Kisame's ability to tank damage and absorb jutsu made it a very tough time for Jiraiya overall. In all honesty, I would imagine that Jiraiya could probably take this matchup without the use of Sage Mode, but I wanted to make sure that my own bias was out of the way, and so I put the two on a more even playing field at the start of the fight. Kisame's attacks would certainly be unorthodox compared to what Jiraiya is used to, but due to his high battle intelligence and his vast experience, they're nothing that Jiraiya wouldn't be able to deal with. And then, even if you want to say that Kisame's absorption ability carries him through this whole fight, it's entirely feasible that Kisame absorbs so much Sage Chakra that he turns into a statue as well, so it's not like that's an outright win condition for him either. All in all, the outcome of this fight is one that I believe to be in Jiraiya's favor, though he takes it with more difficulty than either he or Kisame would expect. I would rate this battle as a hard one for Jiraiya, taking only a slim majority of the fights with a win rate of roughly 65 to 70 out of 100. But the winner is Jiraiya. So hopefully you guys enjoyed my take on this versus battle. I know it's one of the more popular ones in the community to go over, but to date I hadn't seen anyone do it justice in my opinion. If you did enjoy, feel free to check out the other videos I've got up on my channel, and definitely check back here in the future since I try to upload a new video every Wednesday and Sunday, so there should be plenty of content to come in the future. I'll hope to see you all in the next video, but until then, stay safe, have a good rest of your day, and goodbye.